What's good with the YouTube, man? I got one of it's Big Flacco from a convict's perspective, and I just got tongue twisted, and I'm not going to even start over, man. But check this out, man. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, help support the channel. And once again, I got a returning guest, a guest that always has very good stories. Very during the time era when before a lot of us were even born. Put it that way. I mean, not saying that you're old Weddle, but we got Weddle from
Almost.
Santa Bruta, but also with ties to San Jose. It's a very interesting story. If you haven't seen it, tap into a previous story with him. He was part of Vicky's town, but South Side Soho, but he was also from Santa Bruta, which is kind of interesting, man. And how you doing, brother?
All right.
So we were talking beforehand, and we're going to talk about some interesting stories, man. And what people don't, well, some of you guys are starting to learn that Santa Barbara has a long, extensive history in the past, not currently with the NF. And
that was another thing. I got to clear that up too, because I said some things that I thought were true but are not true.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go.
They had a lot more lockdown on Bruta than I knew. That place was locked down by the NF big time.
Yes. I think what kind of changed everything was the last time he paroled was when he went to San Diego, because the family moved out that way. And I think that kind of changed everything a little bit, man. But I'm gonna let you talk about some stories that about even your family had relationships with him.
Right. My dad, I was talking to my dad recently just to clear up some stuff, because he told me that Bobo used to come with my Uncle James to the house all the time. They would come hang out, and I wanted to find out, was he somebody as far as the organization at the time? And this is way before. My Uncle James used to hang out with him in junior high, and they used to do their thing together. With my Uncle James, I won't say nothing about Bobo, but my Uncle James was a heroin addict, and that was his thing. He was a big time heroin addict for every day of his life, practically till he died. He only died recently. Bummer was I never went over. I could have went over if I knew about all this was going to be on the internet. I would have went over and talked to him, have him tell us stories about Bobo and all this stuff. They were good friends. They used to hang out together because they had the same type of lifestyle. My Uncle James was, I guess you would consider him a hippie. He had long hair. He drove a Harley sometimes. He wound up selling it later to my dad. But he had all kinds of different experiences. At one time, he was almost a professional level tennis player. But he spent time in like CMC and what was that other one where they send people like that are a little bit off for the drug stuff?
Vacaville back then.
It wasn't Vacaville. It was another one, a bigger, more well known for psychos.
Tascadero.
I think that was it. And what would happen? He used to tell me all these weird stories. There was a guy inside that prison that had a little red fire truck that was tied to a string, and he would walk around the prison with this little fire truck, and he had a fire hat on, pretending he was fire. So he had all kinds of stories like that.
Oh man!
But it turns out Bobo used to come to my house when we lived on I think Bath Street in Santa Barbara on the east side, and then again on Cañón Perdido, right across from the Armory. We lived there. Where it also turns out that I had told you about my neighbors, the Perez's that live next door. So I wind up talking to people from Santa Barbara after all this and finding out, okay, both Manuel Perez and Jesse Perez, they were the guys that their families lived there. They were pretty much always in prison. So I didn't know. I knew they were something and that they were dealing and all this other stuff. The family had a known name in Santa Barbara. It turns out they were both NF, and I didn't know it. My dad didn't even know it. And then it also turns out I told you about my cousin, Johnny Barnes, and then he has a brother, Louie. And it turns out both of them were NF too, and I didn't know it. Other people in Santa Barbara knew it, but I didn't know it. Because
and these are your family members, those last two.
Right. Johnny and Louie are my cousins. My who I call my Aunt Eva was their mom, and she used to watch me when I was a kid. She used to we were poor, dirt poor. So she invented foods to make for us. She would make me bean. One of my favorites was bean soup. she would take pinto beans in the pot with the water, scoop out when the beans are done, scoop out the beans, pour the water in there, take some Golden State chiles that are in the little container, and she would pour some of the juice, which is vinegar and chile, from the juice into the beans, the water, and serve it to me as a food, saying this is bean soup. And I loved it. That was one of my favorite foods. She would make us pancakes. We didn't have syrup or butter, so she would pour sugar into the batter. We'd roll them up and eat them just like that. We didn't even realize we were poor, but that's the way we ate. So it was a trip. Anyway, but so Baba used to come visiting us, and it turns out I was kind of surrounded by these people, and I didn't realize it. Then I started really talking to some people and finding out, dude, there was a lot of NF in Santa Barbara.
I showed you a picture of 2 old timers. Remember, I sent it to you.
Yeah.
From Santa Barbara. The 2 of those.
Right. I talked to people that know them. I talked to people that know Babo. I talked to people that know other people, and it turns out part of my extended family is related to some of those people. So within my family, there's a lot of people that were related to a lot of people. And I just think that's kind of like it wound up being very strange, because then I moved from Santa Barbara to the south side of San Jose, around the corner from Chuco, and later on he would wind up running that thing. And I'm like, wow, I have so many contacts with so many people, and I had no idea. I did not know that.
Santa Bruta, right? Santa Barbara. Babo, you know, a lot of those people were like, they're like lifetime friends. A lot of them joined the NF. You know, Babo, like I heard from Fig, he was a surfer on the streets. Right. He was like one of those type of guys. He, you know, the whole other element came when he went to prison. But
yeah, that's why he was hanging out with my Uncle James. My Uncle James was a hippie. He had long hair, curly hair. He was a Latino, James Castro. But if you look at him walking down the street, I don't know that he looks like a Huero. He looks like a white dude, right? He had long hair, but he knew all the raza. He knew all of them.
I know you didn't say this, right? But I'll say it. Yeah, he was slamming heroin.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah, that's well known.
I was telling you how we lived on Bath Street. There was one time where my cousin Louis, who is Johnny's brother, they're both about, I'm guessing they're both about, they both passed away in prison. I believe, I don't know if their father's still alive, but he was in prison his whole life. And they were in prison, and they both passed away in prison. Luckily, I believe when the first one passed away, the prison let the other one go visit him. But when I think Johnny passed first and then Louis, but I'm not 100% sure. So Louis was friends with, I cannot remember which one of Babo's brothers, but he was good friends with their family. So one day they were at my house, and this is not something I seen. I was too much of a little kid. This is secondhand talking to my father. He knew all this stuff, but he didn't know any of these people were. He knew later on Babo what he was, but he didn't know Johnny and Louis were involved. He didn't even know the Perezes. He knew the Perezes were doing what they did, that they had to have a lot of connections. They had a huge dope connection out in Texas, so they didn't have to, like my dad would send people out to Chica's to go get their stuff, but I don't think they had to do that. They had a separate connection. So that's why they were like very, very prolific dealers in Santa Barbara back then. Anyway, so back to my cousin Louis, who was good friends with one of Babo's brothers. He passed away in this incident. We lived on Bath Street, and about two doors down there was an apartment complex. I actually had a elementary school teacher that lived in that apartment complex. So one day they're out in our front yard. People used to hang out in my front yard while my dad worked on cars and stuff. So they're hanging out. They see this 56 Chevy go by and turn into those apartments. They think this is the drug dealer. So they're going to go rob this drug dealer. So they take off down the block. They go into these apartments and they go to rob this guy. It turns out this guy was an undercover cop. So they go to rob this guy. He's an undercover cop. And a bunch of other cops wind up coming, and they wind up in a shootout. And both the Sosa brother and my cousin are trying to hide and all this stuff, trying to run away from the cops, trying to hide. And my cousin was able to hide, but they cornered Bobo's brother and they shot him. They shot him a lot of cops shot him a lot of times. It was very, very messy. My dad worked for the city. He had to take a water truck the next day and go clean up the area. I don't want to describe too much. There was a lot of matter on the ground after that they killed him. And my father thought, he was very nervous that because no matter what, at the time, I don't know if Bobo was, what he was later at that time, but my father was afraid that he was going to have Louis killed. In the end, nothing happened to my
What year was this?
Man, I don't know. It had to be in somewhere between, I'm guessing 71 to 74. I'm guessing that's a guess.
He was NF then.
Okay, because he going way back. He probably used to visit our house when we lived on South Cifuentes Street too. I don't know, because that's when my Uncle James had the bike and he was like out there getting wild and stuff.
A lot of those dudes got in because of Bobo, believe it or not. He's the one that the NF. So
yeah, and then I wind up finding out like who was in charge after when Bobo got locked up, and kind of the people that were out on the street controlling the streets. And there was actually people that I know that were out there controlling the streets, but they were not in the thing. But they worked in unison with them because they were related. Right? That's about as far as
they're probably paying it now.
They were related. We're talking about blood-wise. The way I say my family, I find out later on that they're involved in this, but they never told us. We never asked. My father never thought to ask my cousins or the Perez's or any of them, are you involved in this? No. And remember I said kind of stupidly, yeah, my dad wouldn't pay taxes, but this is the facts. The facts are he didn't need to, because he was messing with the people. He was dealing with them directly, but he didn't know it. And they were fine with him not knowing it and him doing his thing and him doing whatever he wanted, because no one ever pressed him for any reason at all, either in Santa Barbara or in San Jose. And there was a lot of people. He even got introduced. You remember, I think you told me about the family in San Jose one time that was moving all that stuff. Blancos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he got introduced to the Blancos at one time because his connection or our connection it was like 99% of the time everything was good. Every now and then he didn't have what my dad needed. So somebody introduced him to the Blancos, and my dad went and met with them and talked to him, but he felt like the vibe that he got was, I don't know that I want to get in on this because this seems a lot more serious. See, the dude that was my dad's connection in San Jose, dude was a baller. He had a lot of money and stuff. He was from Hawaii. And he loved my father. He was constantly trying to like buy him a house or give him this. He would give him drugs, and he would not even talk about how much he owed him or how much my dad would pay him money, but he never really he wouldn't count it. He expected that he was just gonna hook my dad up, and he didn't care what happened.
Okay.
The guy was just a really nice guy. Really, really nice guy. So he really trusted that guy. And these other people, it seemed like he would be getting into something way more serious. So he's like, I don't want to do that. So my father had a pretty good sense of who to mess with and who not. It's not like he didn't trust those people. He just they seem too serious for my thing.
Yeah, most definitely.
And if you, from what I hear, if he would have got involved, then he would already been in too deep.
Well, yeah, pretty much. They got indicted I think they got indicted like 89, maybe.
Yeah. And then you talked about the Palacios too, and I think it's Steve. I think it's Steve. He used to be over our house all the time. I got pictures. I want to put up a picture or two where Dean was like holding him up. They were all high. He used to come over. We'd get stoned and act all crazy in our house. all the time.
There's a
But
few
yeah,
families that were well
it
known.
turns out Santa Barbara was full of the up north people. You couldn't even call them that answer because they were down south people.
Well, there was no north or south at the time. The
Right.
NF started, all its members, original members, were from down south. Believe it or not,
Right.
all that came into play later on. You know, so people don't really realize that there was just as many. Like some of the original founding members were from fucking hoods that are fucking well known now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a trip that people don't even know that, man. I mean, people are starting to know it now, but it wasn't north or south at the time.
Yeah, my dad was really surprised though when he found out I'm the one that let him know. Like, look, Johnny, Louie, Jesse, Manuel, and then the kids that I grew up with Manuel, Jesse, Louie, they were all named the same name. What was the other two? One of them we called Beepy. I don't know his real name. He was the littlest kid.
I think that was.
Then there was a Joaquin. There was Joaquin, and I seen them later on. I was up here and I seen some pictures of them. They started doing the same thing their dads were doing. I don't know if they were involved in any specific thing, but they had went to prison. They were like gigantic, and they were doing the thing. All of them except for Manuel. Manuel, the oldest brother, as far as Manuel Perez's son, Manuel, he was not the same as everybody else. He was a bit of a free spirit, and he didn't follow the same course. I heard he got in with the brothers for a little bit, but he got back out because he did his own thing. He didn't listen to people. Like, he would have never got roped into staying like a dope dealer or anything like that if he wanted to play guitar at the beach in the sand. He was one of the free spirits. There was a lot of dudes that were Chicano raza, but they were also hippies in Santa Barbara. That's just the way it was. Because it's like a laid back lifestyle, you know, they was getting high and just doing whatever.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. I think what people don't realize, right, is the indictments that happened towards Bobo and Death Row Joe, where Death Row Joe ended up, flipping, and then Bobo was impeached, right?
Right.
And later on being hit. That had a big deal in helping, down in Southern California. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Because there was one time they were going to start a faction before there was Norteños or Sureños. They wanted to start something called, I think, Raza Unida or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they wanted to do that because they didn't want to discriminate geographically. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And when those guys got impeached, then all the stuff, everybody was locked down, and then you started having the MA started focusing on the Sureños. That's how all that stuff came about, man. Because there's one time San Diego was a strong chapter. Santa Barbara, when Bobo was impeached, almost everybody from Santa Barbara left.
Oh.
See what I'm saying? Because they had the split. You know what I'm saying? One side ended up winning. There's maybe
in Santa Barbara, Bobo's name was huge. And I had said before that, like, everybody was like, Bobo's the guy, but these are our big homies. That's not true. That's not true. As far as I can tell, that's not true at all. In other words, I don't know that they were rocking the same, like, we're with these guys, but they looked up to the people that were, I mean, the reality was they were NF, and they looked up to those people, right? They didn't look up to the organization itself, but they knew that was a very serious organization at the time. Like, later on, he was their thing. So Santa Barbara was like, hey, our guy's in charge. That's the way it was. It wasn't like, oh, we like him, but these are our big homies. It wasn't like that.
It's crazy.
They had Santa Barbara way more lockdown than I knew.
Yes, they did. They had a couple places, Chiquez too. That's probably maybe why your dad was messing with Chiquez for a minute.
Yeah.
And
that's what my dad used to get.
And so that's when the falling off started to happen around that time, man. And it just happened that way. They started to divide. I mean, I think the administration had a big deal to do with it, man. But that's interesting, the stories, man. I know a little bit about Santa Barbara. I talked to one ex NF member from Santa Barbara to this day. He hits me up. He's supposed to come on the show, but he's real busy. That's going to be a good one when he does, though. But he's probably going to see this video. He's probably going to jump in and have a whole long spiel about it too. You said that you had a story about Chuco you wanted to tell.
Yeah, about the last time that I seen Chuco physically. You know what I mean? This was the last time I seen him. And it says a lot about him and who he is, his character, and everything else. So one night, like, we're in the hood and we got nothing to do. I'm hanging out with the younger guys. Now these are the guys that you'll see with the Middletown Dukes jacket on. You generally won't see the older guys, the guys from Boyle Heights and stuff with Middletown Dukes jackets on. Only us guys that were all somewhere between anywhere from 14 to like 21. You'll see us with those jackets on. So we didn't have nothing to do. We heard there was a party in Middletown. So we're like, I told him, I was from Middletown. Let's go down there. I know them dudes. So we go down there, but I'm going down and I'm like, I haven't been there in a long time. It's like, I wonder if they even remember me. So we go down and it's right on, not Southside Drive, but on the other side of Beth Drive, there's another street that was, a lot of dudes from Middletown lived on that street, a lot of them. And at the end of that street, there was a house that everybody used to hang out at. So we go down to Middletown, we pull up, there's like I think it was two cars of us. So there was, I don't know, 6, 8 guys, something like that. We pull up and we just sit there. We all get out. We have our colors on, the ones that do have colors. And we're just standing across the street outside of the party. And it turns out it's not like a public house party. It's a private party with all the homies from Middletown. Not just anybody can come on in. So I'm starting to feel like, man, I don't even know if these homies remember me, because it's probably been a year and a half, 2 years or something like that since I had like hung out with anybody from Middletown. Although there were dudes from the neighborhood that were in Vickystown. We had dudes from Middletown that was catching grief from their family for joining Vickystown. Anyways, but we never had any hassles. Although we did my first experience of a gang fight was Middletown, when I was in Middletown against Vickystown, and I'll tell you that story one of these days. Anyway, so we're standing outside, and I'm like, man, I'm feeling uncomfortable now because I don't remember, shoot, when's the last time I talked to one of these homies? And then all of a sudden I see the front door of the house open up, and I see somebody walking out. So since I'm the one that was from Middletown, I start walking over there. And the person that walked out was Chupo. And I'm like, oh, I started smiling because I'm like, Chupo, I know Chupo, and Chupo knows me. So right away, he's like, what's up, Huero? And we shake hands. And I could tell he was feeling a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit crunchy because of what he was going to have to tell me, right? So we're all standing out there, and the dudes that I'm with, I guarantee we could have went inside that party and did whatever the heck we wanted to. But I got mad respect for them people. I used to be in Middletown. These are my homeboys, what I consider my homeboys. And I only consider homeboys certain people. A homie is one thing, a homeboy is a different thing. So we're talking, and he says, it's all good. You guys can come on in, but you have to take your colors off. And I'm like, I just smiled, and the first thing I thought was, ain't nobody gonna want to take their colors off. So it was just that. It was a very simple interaction. I told him I'll go talk to the homies, but I don't think they're gonna want to take their colors off. But don't worry about it. It's all good. So he went back inside, and I went back to the homies, and I told them, look, they said it's cool for us to go inside, but we have to take our colors off. Right away, everybody's like, I ain't taking my colors off. And I said, I ain't taking my colors off either. So it's like, we decide, okay, we're going to sit here for about 5 minutes, make them wonder what we're going to do. And then we just jumped in our rides and we split, because it's like very respectful. Ask something that like we might ask of somebody in our hood.
Yeah.
Actually, if it was Middletown, we might have asked. I don't think we would even ask them to take off their colors. But anyways, that's because we got no reason to worry about anybody. But if it was somebody else, we probably would have just jumped on them, went up and jumped on them instead of that. But he was cool, calm, and collected. He remembered me. He addressed me with respect. I addressed him with respect. We shook hands, we hugged, and it was all good. You know, we wind up splitting, and that was the last time that I seen Chuco. And the trip was, see, when I was in Middletown, Chuco, I don't know that he had been jumped into Middletown. I don't know. Personally, I don't know if he ever was. I'm guessing he was because he came out speaking for Middletown at that time. But when I was in Middletown, he lived in Middletown and he was part of the hood. But I don't know if he had been jumped in because he was not the kind of guy that went around doing stupid things.
You know his brother?
He's not your average cholo baboso. You know what I mean? He's not stupid. He's an intelligent guy.
Yes.
Who was raised right, who listens to elders and has respect for people. So he had total respect. I had total respect. It was all good. We wind up leaving him alone. And I don't think we ever went to a party in Middletown after that again. We were like, those dudes are cool to us. We won't bother them. They ever need some help, we'll hook them up. You know?
Yeah. I've always said about Chuco, man, like regardless of what's going on with the state and feds, it's not my business. But I've always said that he was always cool every time I was around him. He was a likable dude. He knew how to move the crowd.
And that's he never was like prideful or disrespectful. I mean, I'm talking about around me. I never seen him run his mouth. I never seen him act like he was bad or something. He was just him. He wasn't trying to be somebody else. And he didn't. You know, most homeboys in the hood, if they listen to their parents, they'd be embarrassed about that. Following their parents' orders and listening to them. Chuco didn't give a damn what you thought about him listening to it.
Yeah, his mom was still visiting him when he was in the county.
You know? Seriously, the guy's a family man. He cares about his family. That's why I say, you know, somebody convinced him of something so much that he said, like, you know, this ain't going the right way. I'm gonna handle this.
Okay. From last time I remember talking to him, right? The last time I talked to him was when I went through Quitting, and I got there and he was about to leave because he was on going up to the Bay. But last time I talked to him verbally, he told me that, you know, he accepts that this is his life that he's living. He's accepted it. His life is no longer out there as far as, you know, family, this and that. This is where his life is now, and he's accepted it. You know,
that's kind of a bummer though, because I mean, I understand you have to in that the position he's in now, you got to accept it. But, well, I mean, really deep down inside, you don't have to accept it, but we'll go there another time. But it's so sad because he was not the kind of guy you expect to wind up in that. When I found out from the homie that you interviewed, I had heard something about Chuco, but I didn't know. And then that homie that you interviewed, the one that Randazzo, his dad was my barber.
Stretch.
The guy from the west side there.
Yeah, Stretch.
Anyway,
Kenny Vidal.
Yeah. I had heard about Chuco, what he was doing from him, and then also Bolo from the south side. Shout out to Bolo out there on the south side. Man, I can't remember the name of his car club right now.
Is he dead? Bolo's been dead for a while, right?
No, Bolo. He's out there. He's still running around the south side. He still lives on Center Road, man.
Okay, I've heard Bolo's name hella times.
Bolo. His family, as a matter of fact, I got a video. I believe I got a video about the testimony of little Mary, she was part of the split of Vicky's Town and Southside Ganga, right? The video, the picture for the video, the icon, that gold car, I believe, is Bolo's father's car.
Okay.
He had a lot of nice lowriders. They were in. Bolo was in the Southside Cruisers bike club, like I said before. I always wanted, when I first moved to San Jose, dude, I wanted to be a Southside Cruiser. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a gangbanger. I wanted to be a lowrider.
So let me ask you a question. How did Vadio Littletown feel that you left them and went to Vicky's Town?
I didn't catch no grief at all. I'm telling you, back in the 70s, look, Middletown wasn't when I was in Middletown, they weren't about gangbanging. Gangs weren't about gangbanging up here. I keep telling people that they get on.
I try to tell people that too, man. That, you know, it's It's not
See,
that
they mistake fighting and getting in gang fights with gang banging. That's not gang banging. Gang banging is when you're hunting, you're making plans, you're making moves, you're doing things in silent and secret. I mean, people are dying and nobody knows who's killing them. That's gang banging. That's different. That's not what people were doing. People would wind up places with other gangs and they'd wind up fighting. That's just being in a gang. So, but they weren't. Middletown was all about the party. Back when I first moved there in '77, all the like Parliament, all the funk was happening. Funk was it. The '70s was funky. Ohio Players, Parliament, Bootsy Collins, all this stuff. And Middletown rocked more funk than anybody, and always cater party and funk just all night long until the sun comes up. That's what we did in Middletown. We didn't go out looking for trouble. The one time, only one time when I was, I'll tell the story right now. Only one time was I in Middletown and we wind up having an issue. And the messed up thing was, it was with Vicky's town when I was in Middletown. So all of a sudden I get a call and they tell me, look, we got to meet up at this park because we're going to throw down with Vicky's town. And I'm like, Tino and Tinto and them came visit my house all the time to visit my dad, right? So I knew who Vicky's town was and I knew what Vicky's town was. And I told these guys, man, you don't want to be messing with those clowns. Somebody's going to die. But it didn't matter. You show up, we're going to find you, right? Yeah. So I'm a little kid at the time. 13, I think. I'm 13, and they say you got to meet because we're gonna have a gang fight at this park. It's over there, Seven Trees Library. There's a baseball field out there, and we were on the one side by that main drag, and they were on the other side. So this is what happened. I asked my father. I got a call. I need to go over here. We're gonna get down with Vicky's town. My dad said, "You ain't going nowhere," because he knew Vicky's town, right? And he knew if we go mess with Vicky's town, we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. So what he did, he said, "You can't go," and I knew if I don't go, I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. I don't know what kind of trouble because I've never been there yet, right? So I'm like, screw what my father said, and I didn't have no weapon, right? So when I went looking around, and my dad had this old, I think, antique World War II bayonet that goes on the front of a rifle. It's about that long, old, rusty thing. So I grabbed that. I jumped on my lowrider bike. If you could, like I told you, I wanted to be a Southside cruiser. I jumped on my lowrider bike and I pedaled all the way to the park. And when I pull up, I see about 30, 35, 40 guys right there. And I'm like, all right, we got a lot of dudes here. I'm feeling a little bit better. Then I look across the way and there's about 40 or 50 dudes from Vicky's town. And I'm like, oh, damn, we're in trouble. Because I know them fools got guns over there. They have to have guns, man. And none of us had guns. We had baseball bats, bumper jacks. I had a bayonet. People had machetes and all kind of other stuff, right? And we're sitting there and everybody's just, for us, we're just sitting there like they're going to have to come over here and get us, right? So we're standing there and I'm there for like 5 minutes. And I'm thinking, oh, damn, I'm about to get shot or stabbed or beat to death. But I'm here. I showed up and we're going to do it right now. We're all standing there ready to go. And right before we start walking forward and they start walking forward, a ton of cops show up. And I'm like, oh, damn. Everybody's like, they're gone. That was it. That was my first gang experience as far as gang interactions with other gangs. Was with Vicky's town.
Even during my time there, that would happen, though. Even during my time there, same thing, you know, like both sides would be over here and they'd be ready for the showdown. Then sometimes the cops would come before it even kicked off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, usually when you have big crowds, somebody's going to call the cops.
Now I want to talk about something right now that we talked about. This is probably the last thing we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you back on Real Talk with Flacco real soon because this is going to be about that stabbing we talked about.
Oh, okay.
I heard that was the most horrific killing that ever happened in San Jose ever. And I heard that there's some question marks about that before that happened, about detectives kind of staging some type of scenario, making the dude look like he was doing something. Did you ever
Oh, really? See, I didn't know that part. All I know 100%, as a matter of fact, that was Negro. There's like, I think there's 3 deaths that I think aren't what was told to people. That's Spooky, who they said got killed over $40 worth of PCP or $20 worth. I don't remember what it was. I don't believe that. Negro, who's the one that you're talking about right now, and then Joker, who later on supposedly committed suicide. But I have people that I've talked to that say they don't believe he committed suicide.
I don't know the details. I may be off on it. I'm gonna cross check it, and maybe I'll bring it up in one of my future episodes. But I'm almost.
So what happened? Negro was, for some reason, I don't even know what he was doing up there. He was on the east side, up was it Mount Pleasant or whatever, up in the mountains.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not. I forgot if I heard it right. I thought he got dropped off over there by the cops or something like that, or something. Happened.
I don't know exactly what the end was. I know that he was up there. He was on the east side. First of all, like, what are you doing over there? Although we always we spent a lot of time on the east side. We actually had homeboys that lived on the east side. We had a lot of homeboys that lived on the east side. When Vickystown first started, I'd say a third of the homeboys lived on the east side, right? And then all over the south side, and people on the north side, west side. And if you want to really get down to it, Vickystown and Horseshoe in the beginning were very friendly with each other. I posted a picture where like all the dudes from Southside Ganga and Tino and some of the other dudes, they got along very well with Horseshoe. They multiple times they've taken pictures. It's just that it's very hard to find the pictures. Yeah. But I did post one, and like I said, Tino used to go over there. He'd catch a beat down every now and then, but a beat down didn't bother him, not one bit. He was all good with a beat down. It's like what he showed with that is that you beat me down, I'll be back. Yeah, don't mean nothing. So anyway, I lost my place there. We were talking. Oh, so he was up there, and turns out, from what I understand, it was at least 4 different knives. 4 different knives. And
he got
initially the police thought that they chopped off his penis because it was nothing but hamburger. And it turned out, after the coroner looked for a while, they found everything there. It was just stabbed so many times it was mincemeat, right? And when we buried him, you could see, no matter how well the coroners did, all over his hands, you could see slit all around the sides of his neck, slit. So they took him and they slit him up every inch of his body, and in his privates was hamburger.
And no one got arrested for that, huh?
As far as I know, no one got arrested for any time anybody from Vickeystown got killed. But like I said, most of them died for other reasons having nothing to do with gangbanging.
I'm gonna get some more information right from someone, and I'm gonna get, because I know someone that's also from Vickeystown, but they can't.
My suspicions. Look, Negro was from Morgan Hill. Now, he had some homeboys growing up that were serious northern type guys, right? Mm-hmm. And I say northern because there was no norteño at the time. There was no such thing as that. There was no such thing as a sureño at the time. There was none. There was the sur and the norte. That's it. Northern and southern, that's it. No sureño, no norteño. Those words didn't exist. I guarantee you. Never seen them anywhere. And I think because of his connections to these people, I think that's what happened. I don't know if it was his own homeboys from back in the day or somebody affiliated with them.
I think, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the answers on this one, and we're going to come back on this. I know someone, I'll talk to you after we're in this, right? But I think I'm going to have the answer for you on this, man, that we're a little bit, It may not the full answer, but it's going to give us a better understanding though of it, man. But
Yeah.
you know, because you mentioned
And
something
you know,
right now that I caught. You
that
mentioned something
name
that I
that
caught.
you gave me,
Yeah.
I've talked to my homeboys, and everybody says I don't recognize the name, but it seems familiar. That's it. I have to know a little bit more about the person to know.
Yeah, I'll get at you about that. Most definitely,
The
man.
name sounds familiar to at least one of my homeboys, and it sounds familiar to me, but I don't recognize it. I need a placazo or something.
Yeah, I'll be able to
Our
get that to you
dates.
now.
Because if it ain't for me, Vickystown, I got all the knowledge when it comes to from 77 to 85. After that, I don't know nothing.
So Vickiestown died out of what year?
It was after I left, I know that. And what happened, I went and talked to a few homeboys to find out, hey, why did the hood kind of just disappear? And what happened, what I got from some of the homeboys was this. What happened was all kind of people, all kind of raza started calling them scraps, right? They started with the South Side and Sureño crap. They started calling Vickystown that, and Vickystown was not Sureño, was not South Side, was not. It was on the South Side of San Jose. It was not a South Side down south.
See, they never used the word South Side either when we were growing up. You know what I mean? They used Sureño like Jeremiah. I think because they had connections down to Boyle Heights and the other areas down south, it made them be classified because I think they started to become Sureños first down there. And some of that started to look like it was being migrated down here. So it kind of makes sense where the I don't know, man. Like I've heard so many different things, but you were there and like I think
there was none of that north-south thing. The only thing that went on that would be considered that was every time we went somewhere and what if it was Joker, Dino, Chino, Speedy, or Tinto, or maybe even some of the other homies that came from Boyle Heights to visit, they'd be yelling East LA everywhere. Whenever we went somewhere and got into some East LA, East LA, East LA, right? We just yelling Vickystown. I would never yell East LA because I ain't from East LA.
Yeah, that's gonna cause
in San Jose, I never even yell. I wasn't saying Bruta, Bruta, Bruta. I'm in San Jose, I'm on the south side. I'm claiming Vickystown, south side, San Jose. When I went to Santa Barbara, I flew my colors on Cabrillo Boulevard, on the beach, up and down Melphus Street, all up in the east side, everywhere.
I like that. I forgot they got that street called Milpas out there in Santa.
That's my street, dude. I lived on that street.
I got a big old Milpas right here. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you've seen that the video where Sad Boy Loco says he got stabbed at that Winchell's. Dude, I lived right across the street. I lived right across the street. That dude at Winchell's, the guy that worked there at nighttime, we used to go over there when they were making the donuts fresh, and we'd kick that dude down some weed, and he'd give us all the donuts we wanted.
Well, so okay, so check it out. So we're gonna probably end this one. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get that additional information about Negro. I'm gonna present it to you. I'm gonna see if we can maybe expand on that. And because we went longer, I was gonna do 2 videos. I was gonna do one for ACP and one for this one, but we kind of elaborated real good on this one.
All right.
I want to get that information in that person's name real quick about that, man. And
that'd be cool.
We'll be on pretty soon. I'm gonna end this session right now. Stay on low with me.
All right.
You guys, thank you very much, Huero, for having you on. You're always enjoyable, man. Your stories are they're detailed. They're like we went over like basically 3 or 4 stories, and they're good.
All right.